Hello, this is Paul, and welcome to Unit 5. In this study, working with OpenOffice.org Calc, which is the creation of spreadsheets, we need to realize that one of the most common practices we've had all our life is to work with several different spreadsheets to begin with. When we look at our bank, we do have a check that we make out. That is a spreadsheet, and also we record that check on our stubs, and that is a second spreadsheet. Finally, you get your statement every month to see what is cleared in the bank, and that is another spreadsheet. And then on the back of that is another spreadsheet to reconcile your checkbook with that spreadsheet. So what we are looking at here is that we are going to take advantage of a spreadsheet that was offered by a bank online here at Bloomfield, Indiana. And it's an excellent layout for us to be able to use a model to produce a spreadsheet that we can use every month and balance reconcile our checkbook very quickly just by putting in a few necessary figures and be done for that statement. We'll wind up with the accurate total very quickly without the use of a calculator or any extra help. So let's take a look at some of the items on here. The first thing we need to do is to start with a plain piece of paper, and if you print this out, if you have a printer and print it out, you'll be able to take a ruler and draw some lines to see what kind of columns and what kind of information you need to put on your spreadsheet as you develop it. The first thing to realize is that there is a border, an empty border going around our spreadsheet here, and we mark that off with a ruler. It's so much easier to have it on a paper and use a plain ruler and be able to spread it out to notice these columns. And I've done this on the computer so you can see it as we have it in a beautiful display here for you and easy to read. So first thing to notice this column, I'm going to put a line in there and realize that I have that empty column, but then I also come in and I have a second line there to be able to start our first table. That table is going to be for our outstanding checks. From there we realize that there is a breakdown, another division between the check number and the amounts that is going to be entered as an outstanding check, so we put those lines in. Now next we realize that there is a gap there that will be able to give you some space there for the two main columns, the left side which covers our outstanding checks, and the other is for deposits and doing the actual calculations to find out what our balance really is. We now move over to the right and we see there's a column there where there is actual information being put in a single line there to do the actual calculations and realize what our balance should be in our checkbook. So we have that all marked off. Finally, we mark off where our right column is at the final edge there before the end of our paper that is given to us that we have printed out, but that just identifies where the next column is going to end. It's going to be important when we go to center things on our page to make the presentation look proper. Now once we do this, we are ready to identify what all of these columns are, and the first principle is that each column has letters going up from A to Z, and then double A to double Z, and so forth on up. So we mark off each column here that we have on our presentation what we're going to be using. And we have it marked off with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and that's enough to go across. But take notice that I have a dotted line in there. I added that extra column because I got the idea that I'm going to mark off with numbers where I am supposed to make certain listings for both my checks, which I'll be using column B, and column G will be used for a set of numbers where I'm going to have for deposits that are not on my statement. So that gives me a total of 8 columns for my spreadsheet. Now we're ready to identify the various lines going down our spreadsheet, and we start off with the top where we have our general heading. This form is provided to help you balance your bank statement. It is all caps and centered overall from one border to the other. Next we go to the next part where we have a subheading. It's divided in 2 parts, one on the left for outstanding checks and one on the right for extra calculations and everything else of instruction being listed. As we move down the page, we see an area there of instruction. It actually takes up a lot of room there, and we'll be joining some cells together to be able to make room for this and give it multiple lines for instruction. The next part of our sheet has a couple more subheadings there, divided up into 2 again, to make 2 lists underneath it to be able to have instructions for preparation before you go ahead and work this spreadsheet. Moving down the page, we realize now that we have a table of that we're going to put in our figures and come up with the automatic calculations to eventually give us a balance on our spreadsheet that should be in our checkbook. The 2 should match after we get done. But this is also coupled with a secondary table where we list our outstanding checks, and we have a total at the bottom of that is replicated over on the other first box that I showed you. As you work this out on a piece of paper using your ruler, you're going to wind up with grid like this, putting both lines of rulers that I showed you before together, and you're going to have everything sectioned out to how you need to develop this spreadsheet, and we're going to do this one step at a time. The way we will perform this, we'll start with how we put in the general heading going all the way across and the subheadings, and then we're going to do the table for the outstanding checks on the left hand side first, and that'll be covered in the second part of this. So be sure to go over this. Make sure you understand how this planning works. It is a little bit of work, a little bit of consideration, but planning and having this all laid out properly will really help you know what you're doing as you start your project on your spreadsheet. In fact, do you know any other documents that you fill out on a regular basis that would be a proper spreadsheet? You might want to go over those principles and use this and lay out the blocks and to get out the ruler and see exactly how it does apply. And once you have this all worked out and have a good understanding on how to plan, you'll be successful as we go forward into our next session on part 2 to be able to start what we're going to put in there. As I have mentioned before, this is a study that we are having on a Saturday afternoon at the First Church of the Brethren in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And if you have any questions or any problems on these principles, be sure to stop by and ask questions. That's what we're there for.